PICKASIDE Nation, I am your host, James Finley, for the PICKASIDE Podcast. Hope everyone is doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in to our previous 3 shows that we had this week for our first annual Black Cancer Awareness Action Week. This is our last day, and coming into the lab today, we have Stacy Lewis from Young Survival Coalition. Stacy has been pounding the drum for our young people, young women that are dealing with breast cancer. I'm quite sure that you're going to absolutely love what she has to say during the course of this interview. I invite you to sit back, relax, and listen to Stacy Lewis, Young Survival Coalition. Thank you so very much. Have you guys a great day. Till the end of time, PICKASIDE Nation, how's everyone doing today? I'm your host, James Finley, with the PICKASIDE Podcast. And this week, we are having Breast Cancer Awareness Week, and I have a very special guest coming into the lab again, Stacy Lewis, who is the Chief Program Officer and the Deputy Chief Executive with the Young Survival Coalition. Stacy, how are you doing today?
James, I'm doing fantastic. And thank you so very much for having me and for being a part of not only Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is certainly an important acknowledgement to an issue that is killing and really impacting a number of women across our country and around the globe, but also for this opportunity to really talk to your community and just amplify the voice of the young adults dealing with breast cancer.
That is very awesome. So awesome. As I was speaking with Stacy when I first originally spoke with her, I was doing some research, trying to find guests to be a part of this very important week, and I ran across the organization, and I was wondering. I was like, okay, I need to see if there's a name attached to this, and your name had popped up. And as I was speaking with you, I just said, hey, there must be a God somewhere, and and so Stacy had to correct me and say, yeah, it's right here, like right now. And so very true. And I'm so very grateful to have you on. To breast cancer for women is like men's prostate cancer. And sometimes we don't, I know for men, we try to sweep it underneath the rug a little bit because of all the issues that go along with it. And breast cancer, sometimes women, they try to sweep it underneath the rug as well. So give me a little background about yourself, Stacy, and how you got involved with the Young Survival Coalition.
Absolutely. I believe that my divine calling has really been to helping those that are hurting because we all need help in some way or another. And in that leading in my kind of part-time obedience, I'll just be transparent there. It really has been to acknowledge and begin to meet the needs of really those dealing with women's cancers in particular, although certainly the male population is important. But for me, the calling has really been to women's oncology because of the unique issues that we face and because of how that impacts the larger community. So I started my history in women's oncology at the American Cancer Society, which I know we've all heard of, and then spent a number of years at organizations that have been focused either on breast health, breast and ovarian, or women's cancers in general. And Young Survival Coalition is 22 years old. And has been in that 22-year history solely focused on acknowledging, amplifying, and addressing the needs of the young adult population dealing with breast cancer. And I've had the honor of working for YSC for 16 years now.
Yeah. When you first started working for YSC. What was it about the organization that attracted you to want to be a part of YSC?
It's a great question. Dualfold, really. One is that for most of us, when we think about breast cancer, we think about, our mothers, our grandmothers, really that age 50 and older, dealing with a breast cancer diagnosis. And while that is certainly traumatic, I think that we can all begin to relate to the uniqueness and the devastation of those diagnosed in their 20s and 30s. And um, as a Black woman, acknowledging that the issues that not only young adults face, but that the issues that African American or Black young adults face dealing with breast cancer are much more amplified. Certainly, that just drew me in like a marlin on a hook.
So as the title of the organization is named Young Survival Coalition, what age group is more targeted for the organization?
So while we always say we don't card, so we don't look at your license or ID to find out how old you are, the organization was founded by three women that were all diagnosed at the age of 35 or younger. And we were founded to focus on those that are diagnosed with breast cancer 40 and under.
Hmm.
And because those needs and that experience is so very different,
Right.
that continues to be our focus, those diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 40 and under, and their co-survivors, or that population that is really helping to support them most immediately.
You know, anytime someone goes to the doctor and they have to have tests ran,
Mhm.
and when you get a call back that says, "Hey, can you come back to my office?" or the doctor would like to speak with you regarding the test that you just taken, and the first thing that you normally say is, "Well, just tell me over the phone." And then the response is always, "Well, we just need you to come into the office,"
Mhm.
which sometimes hardly ever good when they say that. But from the mental aspect of it,
Mhm.
when a person is told, "Hey, you have cancer," the first thing that the average person, the first thing they start automatically thinking of, "Am I going to die?" That's the first
Mhm.
thing that comes to
Absolutely.
mind. And for me personally, I've never been diagnosed with cancer. Thank God for that. But I had a situation years back where I was told that I had hours to live, and
Jesus.
that was earth shattering for me. So when you guys are dealing with these individuals that come to you for breast cancer, things of this nature, mentally, how is YSC dealing with these individuals on a mental aspect of that?
Well, I think the mental aspect is one of the most critical because, as you know, that once you have your mind, so to speak, wrapped around your situation, that then you might be able to feel a sense of empowerment to moving through that situation. And so for YSC, one of our frontline initiatives is making sure that we have available both young adults that have been trained, that have had a diagnosis, and that have been trained to support others, as well as we have staff that are both young survivors as well as well versed at how to immediately support the community. And I would go back to some of the nuances that you raised around whether people are hearing by phone or actually going back into the office. We can certainly all acknowledge the experience or the impact that the pandemic has had, and I think that a lot more people than one could imagine are hearing over the phone or through telehealth, so maybe more of a virtual experience, if you will. Yet the information is devastating nonetheless. And
Right.
so our hope is that young adults that are diagnosed with breast cancer are finding Young Survival Coalition earlier rather than later, shortly after their diagnosis or at diagnosis, and
Mhm.
understanding that they can connect with other young adults that have been there and really understand their cancer, that they can connect with YSC and learn more about their diagnosis, and that combination then helps them to feel empowered, to really work with their provider, not for their provider, but work
Right.
with their provider, to move through the experience.
You just said something that just totally just left my mind and doing my research to interview you today, which is the pandemic.
Mhm.
So during the pandemic, there were a lot of other diseases and things like that where people was going having problems that had to be put aside because there was such an influx of people that had COVID-19, things of this nature. So during this pandemic environment that we're in now, and it's a whole lot better than what it was back in March of 2020. But during those hard months, where were you guys at as an organization with women that may have reached out to you guys a little earlier before the pandemic, and how are you guys able to still reach out to those individuals to help them get through all this?
It's a great question. And certainly the pandemic hit not only Young Survival Coalition, but the nonprofit community extremely
Yes,
hard.
yes.
Um, Yet we as an organization were able to pivot, right? One of the big pandemic words, we were able to pivot because we were already offering a lot of services, connection, community online. As you well know, a lot of young adults are used to going online for
Right,
information,
right,
for
right.
connection, for community. So we really took the opportunity to amplify or broaden the services that we were offering, to our constituents online, virtually, but also really making sure that we stayed connected to them so that we could understand what the real time needs are, and figure out how, on a more of a shoestring budget, how we could begin to address them. And while it's gotten better, we still know that there are a number of young adults, unfortunately, that don't have easy access to quality health care. And so our hope is that, knowing that there are others out there causes them to strive to access health care if indeed they're sensing something is going on, and really connect with YSC to gain empowerment.
You know, our African American communities and other communities of color, uh, we really we really were hit very hard with COVID-19. This particular organization, YSC,
Mhm.
which the research I've done with it is so phenomenal. I want you to speak a little bit on what you were just talking about, because there's so many of our people that don't have health insurance
Mhm.
and are relying on having to go to your local clinic or something of that, where you may not get the adequate health care that you need, opposed to going to a bigger facility or something like that. So are we really getting hit really hard in our communities of color when it comes down to breast cancer?
I think what you're seeing now, is the amplification of that message, right? Is the amplification that the disparities in breast cancer, in cancer, the health outcome disparities, the healthcare access disparities, and the impact of the social determinants of health on those disparities. We're really hearing a lot more about that. For Young Survival Coalition, we've been addressing that for a number of years. But yes, the reality is that while where you live should not determine if you live or how long you live. The reality is that when it comes to cancer, and this is cancer across the board, there is significant impact there if you don't have access to quality diagnostics. If you don't have the knowledge that young adults can and do get breast cancer, it is unfortunately, I want to say easier, it's not the right word, but it is an unfortunate reality that it is in the African American community, the communities of color, where we're seeing delayed diagnosis, those that come to their diagnosis, unfortunately, with a later stage disease. So it is indeed an issue, and one that we are proud to work with many other organizations to continue to try to combat. And I think even within our own communities, the value of health in general needs to continue to be amplified, and one that comes with not judgment, but then comes with support and really meeting people where they are,
Right.
both on their educational level, their health literacy level, their financial level, and really striving to make sure that we are working collaboratively to uplift the communities of color, and ensure that they get the access that they need.
That's great. I always feel like there needs to be a level playing field.
Mm.
And even something basic as car insurance, you know, you're based car insurance is based on, of course, your driving record, but also where you live. And I know out here in California, we call it redlining. And so when if you give them a area code, not an area code, a zip code, and you're in 90043, which is South Central Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
your car insurance is going to be so much higher than it is if you're in 90312 Beverly Hills. So my question to you is, are we getting hit hard because of the communities that we stay in terms of getting health care? Uh, I know that sometimes when you have to go get diagnosed for something, those those particular facilities are not going to be in our neighborhood. You're going to have to drive out further to get tested. So all these things seem to the odds are stacked against us. So what does YSC do in regards to that?
So again, I think, and I've probably used this word 16 times so far, but I do think that it is the amplification of the message that young adults can and do get breast cancer, and
Right.
that YSC is here to help.
Mhm.
And the reality is that the issues, the disparities that we're facing, the roadblocks that you alluded to are systemic. It's not new
Mm.
that that our communities
Yeah.
are suffering or have varied or disparate access. That's not new. I think that we are constantly striving against the system reality, realistically, when you think of not only African Americans, but our Native American brothers and sisters who, have really been put in positions on reservations where their access to healthcare is really primary healthcare.
Yeah.
And then when there's a diagnosis, how do they really begin to access
Right.
real care? And
Right.
I think that the systems that have been put in place, unfortunately, um, that are not really supporting communities of color are reliant, even more heavily reliant on us as communities doing
Mhm.
the best that we can to usher forward a new message and to get involved in some of that systemic change.
Yeah. Stacy, when you guys have someone to come in to that is reaching out to you guys, uh, and once you all have had an opportunity to speak with that individual, do you all try to reach out to that person's family to try to get their family members involved in terms of support, or do you just kind of keep it in the circle of the Young Survival Coalition?
It's a great question. We actually do support the family. We call everyone around that survivor. a co-survivor, because it is an impactful experience, a diagnosis, going through treatment, dealing with the finances, dealing with transportation. All of that not only impacts the person that has been diagnosed, but also impacts that immediate surrounding, not just the immediate family, but really your immediate community. And
Right.
so for Young Survival Coalition, we do offer supportive programming and education for what we call survivors. And, we have some private Facebook groups for our co-survivor community, as well as some virtual hangouts, which are online support groups for moms of young adults that have been diagnosed, and for male partners of young adults that have been diagnosed, because they do indeed need support and often need permission
Yeah.
to seek support for themselves while they support the survivor. So it
Yeah.
is a very multi-pronged work and approach to serving the community. And that's why we call it a community of young adults impacted by breast cancer.
That's great. That's great. So, what other type of programs does your organization do in the community other than just breast cancer?
Sure. I just came back from my first in-person event slash program called our Tour to Pink, which is a one-day bike ride this year. It's usually a three-day bike ride. This year, our Tour to Pink, the Alicia J. Frank Memorial Ride, is a one-day ride. We had one on the East Coast in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, and then we'll be hosting one on the West Coast in a few weeks. So anyone that is looking for information can certainly visit our website at youngsurvival.org to find out more. We also host the largest international gathering of young adults impacted by breast cancer. Of course, in 2021, it was a virtual event, our YSC Summit. But the idea there is to really make sure that everyone has access to tailored information, to real support, and to an opportunity to build community with other young adults impacted by breast cancer. Our website is extremely robust because we need to make sure that we are there for the national and the international community of those dealing with the diagnosis.
So, here's something that a lot of people don't realize: um, women are not the only ones that get breast cancer.
That is correct.
Men get breast cancer, and I think one of the most known celebrities of that. Don't worry about it. One of the most well-known celebrities of that would be Ben Vereen. I remember Ben Vereen, long time ago, had came out that he had breast cancer. Do you guys ever have any men that have this issue, same issue as women?
Yes, I mean, you're right. Men do get breast cancer. In part, one of the reasons that we moved from a tagline and a mission solely focused on women, because we do say young adults, men do get breast cancer. It is extremely rare in young men. There are a few young men, but you're right. It is impacting men just as it is women. I think that the number right now is about 1%
Hmm.
of the breast cancer diagnosis is in men. Yet they need support too. And so
Absolutely.
certainly we partner with organizations, including the Male Breast Cancer Coalition, to make sure that if there's information and resources that we have, and that if there are young men that are diagnosed, that those information and opportunities are as accessible to him or them as they are to her or them.
So I should have asked this question a little bit earlier. So for the young lady that's out there
Mhm.
listening, the young person in general that's listening right now, and they are trying to they feel something. They feel something is
Mhm.
different.
Right.
And they may not have the resources to go get it checked out or anything like this. So, what advice would you tell someone that's something that's feeling a little different in their bodies?
Mhm.
They don't have the resources to go get it checked out. So, what kind of advice would you tell those individuals?
I would say that they do have the resources, they just may not know of them yet. There are programs, including the breast and cervical detection programs that are across the country that are designed just for that, for those that may not have the insurance, may not have the coverage or the information that they need to access quality care. But where if indeed they are finding a lump or some type of abnormality in their breast or breast tissue, that they can seek services. So if they are not familiar with how to go about doing that, certainly they are welcome to call or email or write to Young Survival Coalition. The American Cancer Society is another great resource for making sure that people understand what free or reduced cost resources are out there, as well as the Patient Advocate Foundation, all of which can be found online. But there is opportunity for everyone to find out what's going on with their body.
That's great. That's great. So Stacy, what's the long term goals for YSC? What are you guys planning on doing going forward with this outstanding organization that you guys
Thank you so much. And once again, a great question. Been
have?
really firing them off today. We actually have some pretty big plans. We certainly want to continue to do the good work that we're doing, and that is supporting, educating, and building community amongst the young adults that find YSC. We want to really explore creative ways to position the organization as even more accessible to those that may not be those immediate self-seekers. So maybe they don't go online and Google young women or young adults with breast cancer and find YSC. And I think that the third part is that we're embarking upon a really bodacious project, if I must say, and it's called Project 528. And it is really our approach to assessing the global needs of the young adult population diagnosed with breast cancer. And our rough estimates are that there are about 528,000 people living across the world that has had a diagnosis of breast cancer before the age of 40. And so if we can understand what their needs are, then we can begin to really see, what role does Young Survival play in meeting those global needs? How can YSC be supportive in meeting those global needs? Because we do believe that as the leading organization focused on young adults with breast cancer, we have a responsibility to share the knowledge that we have, to share the expertise that we have. And so I'm really expecting that Young Survival over the next few years, YSC will really be known for not only its national impact in the young adult community of breast cancer survivors, thrivers, and co-survivors, but will also be known or starting to be known as an organization that is impacting globally this community.
Well, Stacy, I have to tell you, I certainly appreciate you being a part of the Pick a Side podcast. Uh, in support of breast cancer awareness, and I know that the Pick a Side organization, we're going to do all we can to help promote your organization going forward. I so love the love what you said earlier in the interview where you said that there was a calling
Mm,
upon you to do something. I want to encourage everyone out there. We all have a calling of some sort
yes.
or another, and there are so many times where we either run from that calling or we just don't pay attention to it. And so I want to encourage those that if you ever have an opportunity to get involved with the organization that is doing good, to do so. It's nothing like it's so much gratification when you're able to help somebody. It's more of gratification when you help somebody than is it when you're receiving something from someone.
Yes,
It's just
indeed.
that it is for me. I know that, if I'm able to talk to someone, I can see that they are benefiting from that and they have benefited. It's just an unspeakable joy that I get on the inside of me. And I'm quite sure it's the same for you because you're dealing with so many different individuals, so many different, attitudes, different personalities, things of this nature. So on your platform, what's the best social media platform that everyone can be able to reach out to Young Survival Coalition?
Absolutely. Certainly, our website I would consider to be our primary platform, which can connect you to everything, and that is youngsurvival.org. Certainly, you can find us on Twitter at YSC Buzz. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on LinkedIn, and you can find us on there's one more. I'm sure I'm forgetting, but you can find YSC wherever it is you go socially. And we are really there to continue to build community, to educate, to support, and to empower the population of young adults with breast cancer. James, I do want to thank you and your Pick a Side audience for tolerating me, for having me, for inviting Young Survival Coalition to participate. Anything that helps us spread the word about young adults and breast cancer, we are forever grateful. I look forward to this being the beginning of a fantastic relationship.
Absolutely, the pleasure is mine, and I just certainly I love talking to good people. Good people are very easy to talk to, and I definitely
It's the
consider
truth.
you to be as such. So, Stacy, thank you so very much for being on the another Pick a Side podcast. And as I always tell my audience before I get out of here, always remember to do this one thing: keep God first place in your life, and He'll take you places that you never dreamed of. You all have a great day. The Young Survival Coalition. Stacy, thank you for coming out
Thank you.
to speak on your organization's behalf, and we'll definitely see you on the other side.
All right.
All right, take care.
Bye bye.
Pick a Side Nation, I want to thank you for tuning in this week for our first annual Black Cancer Awareness Action Week. I want to thank our three survivors, Stacy Foxworth, Shafina Perkins, as well as Sharice Williams, that had the opportunity to come in and tell their very, very, very touching stories about how they were able to survive this dreadful disease called breast cancer. I want to thank Stacy Lewis from the Young Survival Coalition to come in and discuss all the wonderful programs that they have and how we can reach out and do something. We don't want to sit on the sidelines. We want to be able to do something to help with breast cancer. So thank you so very much for tuning in. The words of the song is "What the world needs now is love." I thought it'd be apropos to have this song coming in on our last day of the podcast. Of course, I don't own the rights to that song, but I want to thank you so very much for tuning in. We'll see you on the other side.
It's the only thing that